What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? We have the Masterson of the Trump rally here today with us. We have one of the interviews I think that both Taylor and I have been the most excited to hope to get the chance to do. We reached out to Walter Masterson, who has graciously agreed to give us a little bit of his time when he had an opening, which is why we're doing this remote, not in the studio today. So we apologize for any lower production quality. But he is a legend of social media. If you don't know his stuff, he does very similar to Daily Show style content where he goes to political events, rallies, and he'll either interview people or kind of infiltrate their ranks. And it's very entertaining stuff, very enlightening, very horrifying stuff a lot of the time, we've just absolutely love the work that he's doing. Both of us are big fans. You were one of my very first follows when I got on the app, and when you followed me back, I gotta say it was one of my biggest fangirl moments I think I'd ever had at that point. It was a really cool moment for me. Kind of one of those TikTok, social media creator milestones. So again, this is another one of those moments. Gracious enough to be here with us.
Well, it was difficult not to. I mean, you were popping up on my For You page enough where I was like, all right, be weird if I didn't follow him. TikTok. You can thank TikTok for that. TikTok just forced the relationship.
Well, I appreciate TikTok.
They're like, your guys are going to become mutuals. You don't have any choice, no matter.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate TikTok for doing that. Doing that.
Glad
following me, if nothing else. No, I really do.
Glad the algorithm could do at least one thing right.
Every once in a while, it gets it right.
Mm-hmm.
It's really funny. We're all against the TikTok ban, right? We're totally, incensed by this. Yet, if you took every one of us aside individually, we could go for hours and complain about TikTok as a platform. Like, no one, like when other people hate it, we're like, no, you don't get to hate it. It's for we get to hate it. We hate TikTok, and it's because it's ours, and we hate it, but we hate it for the right reasons.
Right.
We hate it because they're constantly screwing us, but that's our thing, and they don't get to hate it for I don't know, whatever made up reason they have this week to hate it. But it's like, you're absolutely right. I spend so much time. I'm sure my wife, if next time I start bitching about TikTok, is gonna punch me in the throat, because it's just every day I'm like, this is what they did to me today, and I'm so angry about it. But you try to take that away from me, and I will throw hands.
Yeah, how dare you? Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, so I was a huge fan, and then when we got started doing this podcast, I'm like, well, I got some mutuals on here, and I just gave Taylor my phone and let him start scrolling through, and his eyes kind of lit up. He's like, it would be so cool if we could get Walter Masterson on here, because he was already following you and a big fan of you from YouTube, I think even before TikTok. So yeah, you got some pretty big fans here. We absolutely love the work you do, and once again, just hugely humbled that you're taking a little bit of time for us today.
Well, thank you, man, and humbled as well. Thank you. And I think I feel like we've all been making content for almost the same amount of time.
When did you get started?
It's been a long road.
When did you get started?
Yeah, I saw you guys started your podcast in November, and we just started in October, so just a month before you guys
1 month
officially. Yeah.
How's it been going? How have you been?
Yeah, pretty crazy.
How's it been going? Podcast wise, it's been okay. It's not algorithmic like what I'm used to with TikTok, and with social media platforms. It seems like the people that come to your page, and then come to your podcast, so to come back the next week, it's not like this day-to-day fight,
right?
And they change out. It's not. That was sort of what attracted me to that. It seems more sustainable when you get it up and going, and I feel like there's a shelf life now that I've been going around to Trump rallies and trolling people for years, and I feel like that that's going to run dry because, when I go to some of these events, it's not just that people recognize me. They recognize me because I made them famous at another event.
We're not
I mean,
falling for the
when you
same
can
thing.
walk, yeah, when I walk into CPAC, I will run into 8 people that I've. It's not like, oh, wait, I met them. It's like, no, I made a video about you, 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 you. Each of those videos got millions of hits. It's not like it wasn't a gotcha. I didn't like. I'd let you
Yep.
talk.
Well,
Right.
I
Yeah.
I would
Well,
I
I
would
mean, at CPAC, sort of really all you got to do is just let them talk, and they'll
If
say
you look at my
something.
recent, yeah, if you look at my recent video from CPAC, it's very lightly edited because people accuse me of like, oh, well, you just creatively edited this, and it was like, I want you to look at this and look at conversations that just play out and know that my question and their answer was 2 seconds apart from each other, and this is what they said, unprompted, and so this was it was a very weird experience. I had a pass, a press pass for CPAC this year. I don't know. I applied for it just like on a lark. They gave it to me and my girlfriend, and I was there for 2 days. The entire time I was waiting. I was like, They're going to throw me out any second. Like that's just. And then they didn't. I was like, all right,
I'm amazed that they
yeah.
let you in. I was also, that was one of the questions I had for you, is like, how often are your ventures into these kinds of things unsuccessful? Is it really that common that these people that get featured, like, you just stumble into them pretty much guaranteed, or is it cycling through a lot of people, a lot of interviews that aren't quite so unhinged to find those people?
I'll talk about the people that I edit out. So, it's one thing to say like, oh, MAGA people are all dumb and everything. I think radicalization can kind of make someone kind of
Yeah.
dumb. I mean, you can look at Elon Musk. I mean, you can look at how, he's a very ineffective CEO now that he's been
Right.
radicalized. And, I'm not going to question his effectiveness as a CEO to this point. He's done great things. Look, he's awful
Yeah.
now. And it's because he's, is brain broken. So I edit out people that I think are like below that bar of intelligence. That I was like, all right, this is not a fair thing. And
And is that
I've
like
had,
more than half or under half? Probably. Like, what's the percentage?
it's not a lot of people. It's not a lot of people. I'll be
Okay.
fair. Like there's a few people that I'm like, all right, you're not that intelligent, and this isn't, this is sort of it'd be abusive for me to, not interview you and embarrass you. And sometimes,
Right.
my producer Max has pulled me off certain people. He's like, I'm getting a bad read. This guy's borderline. It's not good. Like I need someone that has cognitive function.
Yeah.
And because sometimes their cognitive function kicks in at certain times. Like sometimes it just goes boop. And I was like, wait, you have no problem differentiating these things. So I edit out those people. Then there's some people that like, I don't know, they're not very outspoken per se. They're just at a Trump
Yeah.
rally. And it's, you know what? Okay. They don't really have these strong opinions on Trump or whatever. And you know what? There's no, there's nothing to do
They
there,
haven't fully drank the
really.
Kool-Aid yet. They're just
I think they just, I don't even think they know why they support Trump. They
they do
just
because their
do.
friends do. They're there for the social event aspect of it.
Yeah, it might be cultural. They're there with their church group, and it's just whatever.
So
Stuff like that. Like I need people that are, they're on fire about what they believe in, right? Because that's
Right.
the comedy. That's where the comedy comes in. I'm talking to them, and they're not like they're so brimming with rage and that they are not listening to a thing that I'm saying because, like my recent one, I talked about how the public schools are teaching, these woke schools are teaching my daughter
Yeah, I saw
consent.
that one.
Yeah.
And I made two videos of this. I went to Michigan, the Trump rally there, and I went to CPAC, and I did it there. I beat this joke to death. And it was, I mean, these people eventually throughout the conversation could express that they understood the concept of consent. In my most recent video, The Last Woman, she is the
Yeah.
co-host of Steve Bannon's show. Steve Bannon. She's the co-host of her show. She started
She just went
off
off on that diet
saying, well,
Yeah.
consent.
at the end there, and it's like, but I watched it with my wife, and she was like, "What the fuck is he saying or she saying? Like, none of this makes any sense with the question you just asked about consent." And it's like she started off, it's like she almost had it, and then just
She started off scared. She looked at me like, why would you not teach consent? That's terrifying. I'm a woman. I fear for my safety sometimes. All, very valid, universal concern as a woman. And you're like, okay, great. And I said, well, what age should we teach this to children? And suddenly she was like, it's satanic what they're doing to kids. And she went right in. And this is like the same shot. I had limited time with her. I spoke to her for about a minute, 2 minutes. It was like, okay, and so it is weird when you get them like brimming with stuff that you're like, all right, this is, and then I've started to do ones where I have them sort of coming closer to the point where like I feel like they're getting it, and I'm like, okay, like let me, I want to hug you right now. Like this one guy talking about how the corporations are doing most of the polluting in this world. And he's like, why are we making it an individual problem? Which is a fantastic point.
we talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
all the time.
And
Absolutely.
so the conversation with him started with how we're not drilling enough. Okay? And then it moved into how the corporations are the ones polluting. Why should you, punish individuals? Which is a very valid conversation to have. And then my producer Max nodded to me, and I was like, but we're not drilling enough, right? And he just goes right back into this, we're not drilling. And which is also funny, like when you go to these things, they dislike Biden because he is not drilling enough. If you ask any progressive, you grab any progressive off the street and anyone who cares about climate in any way and say, do you think Biden's not drilling enough? You will get punched in the face, right? Like you would you would get smacked, not like punched. It would be smacked in your head like it's not working correctly. I don't get it,
Well,
right? Like
It's true. We all dislike Biden for the amount of drilling he's doing. It's just it's what we can come together on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's a very weird thing of like not liking something for the correct reasons. Like I don't like Walmart, as because of wage theft. And labor theft, not because of woke DEI transgenderism.
So you said you've gotten like where people have gotten closer. Have you ever had like a positive experience where you really feel like you've gotten through to somebody, where they saw the light, where you maybe have made a difference in their life, maybe their voting habits, their ideologies at all?
Oh my God, that's the thing. My producer and I, like, we're going to start testing this out because he likes having these conversations. They're not very, social media worthy. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. And he thinks that you can impact someone's thinking and everything. And so I've tried to do this thing. So people like get in my DMs and just start, talking crap and everything. So I was just like, great, come on my show. I sent him a Riverside link, and then my producer and I will just talk. We did this with one guy who was like, the guy follows, he listens to Matt Walsh. He's just what you would think of MAGA. And so we were starting to have this thing where Max and I were thinking like, all right, well, maybe we, what are the definitions of things that he's going off of versus, because we would talk to people and it's like, all right, what do you mean by illegal immigration? What do you mean by this? And sometimes someone's definitions are slightly different, and sometimes this. And sometimes it is, I feel like we get to some, I feel like sometimes we arrive at common ground, but it's because we arrived there. I hate trying to find common
Right.
ground. You know what I mean? Like, we can disagree. That's fine. I hate trying to influence someone and like change because I can tell now. I've interviewed so many people. When I watch someone on TikTok and they're interviewing someone, I can, it reads like especially for me because I'm like, oh, I know what that question is. It's like you're trying to influence this opinion and this and that. So yeah, like I feel like I don't know if there is something to be said with regards to that. The only thing I think there would be is I feel like we need someone, leadership that is, focused on class war, like people that talk Bernie.
Populist. We need. I mean, because whether we like it or not,
Well, Trump is a
Trump's a populist
populist. I mean, he's
candidate, more or
horrible,
less,
but
or at least it's how he campaigned.
yeah, I mean, Trump's a populist, but you need someone who has, a class war appeal and not, that,
Culture war, yeah.
culture war, radical, xenophobic
Yep.
populism.
No,
Yeah, I mean, other
Because I
than
feel like these people, they're ripe for it. I mean, there's like a lot of people I meet that I'm like, it's like this sort of MAGA communist, vibe to them.
right, I feel like that you're definitely onto something, and I definitely agree that besides Bernie, there's not a ton of people out there. Like maybe AOC has like that understanding of class dynamics down 100%, but she doesn't really hammer it to the extent where like
no.
what you're saying is like
Like
it could make a
right
difference.
as
And now she's just labeled as AOC, so like who's going to listen to her on the right, I guess. But
Exactly. Yeah.
no, we agree though.
Yeah, you get. I mean, that's it. That's what I feel like you need with so that we don't have, this civil war, this brimming civil war. You need someone that can, because I feel like there's people out there that I think in the MAGA world that would, respond to someone like Bernie Sanders, and like you have. There are definitely a lot of people though that I speak to, and they're like, absolutely not. Like, tax cuts for the billionaires. I want to protect, and they want to go full chud. They know what they think. They know what they believe, and they actually know what they're doing. I would say like a Ben Shapiro. Like he's smart enough to know exactly what he's doing and what he's saying and the impact it has. Like he can be, he can be fired into the sun for all I care.
I would pull the trigger on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there needs to be, and I mean Bernie running as an independent, I think for so long, and really kind of walking the walk and talking the talk has allowed him some entrance into that sphere. Where he could, or a person like him could, in theory, sway enough votes from the MAGA, the populist wanting candidates or voters of the right. But the identity politics thing seems like it gets worse and worse every year, and I'm not sure how much longer
it's
before
the
that's going to
worst.
be ineffective.
I mean, like this is the worst election I've ever experienced because I have to go out and tell people to not, to vote for Biden over Trump. Yet if I was in a room with Biden or any member of his cabinet or staff, I would be like screaming and like no one, I'd have to be pulled out.
No,
Right? Like I'm just like, there's Israel, Palestine, there's, some of their messaging that I'm just like, are you trying to lose?
my God, can we
Like, what
can
are
we
you
talk
doing?
about messaging for a second? It's not just me, right? It is
Yeah.
the Democratic Party has the dumbest fucking messaging on the planet.
Yeah.
Just like across the board, and I don't understand like they have lots of money. You think that they could hire a decent PR firm to just come up with.
Well, when they do hire PR, when they hire someone, it is effective. When they hire someone to do it outside of their sphere, it does well. I've been hired as a consultant. I've been, I've been, like low key hired as a consultant because they're like, you obviously know MAGA. Like, how do we reach, these people or this? Like, I had like some job interview where it was an hour long job interview. And I was like, none of what you're telling me is effective. This is just terrible. And like, I got hired at the end of it because I was like, this is terrible. Like, no one cares about anything you're bringing up right now. So it was very funny. So that was when they do. But the thing is, like, like I think AOC was talking about how Obama actually had a good campaign because he did it outside of the Democratic
Yeah,
Party.
he did. I agree. The hope and change and kind of just some of the imagery and rhetoric from his campaign was really effective.
And then like he would clap back at the speed of the internet.
Yep.
Like things would happen and like it wouldn't have to reach a crisis point
It also helped.
before he would like clap back on it and be like, and he'd hit back. I mean, this is also before things moved at the speed of social
Right.
media.
Uh,
I mean, versus today. But I mean, it was that is like, I feel like it's burdensome to someone that's a progressive that wants to get rid of Trump, is it falls on you and I to dispel these myths. And you're just screaming into the void. You can explain something 50 times and it just, and then you make 50 videos explaining why this is disinformation. And, you're just going to get the same comments again and again being like, this is not, and you're like, all right, you've got to be kidding me with this.
yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And it is incredibly frustrating as progressives because there's so many problems we have with the Democrats, and it's like we're not even allowed to air those grievances because it feels irresponsible, especially once you have a platform as a content creator, in an election year especially, to air those grievances because you don't want. It's like I hate so many things that the Biden administration's doing and the Democratic Party as a whole. Like I'm so frustrated with them, and we need to have a talk about it. But if I do that, I run the risk of convincing people that they should go vote for Trump or vote third party, and then I mean I take that responsibility serious.
Well, no, but that's the thing with like leftists is that at any given moment we're ready to not vote. Like I swear to God, like it's like sort of this sort of in vogue amongst us to advertise that none of us are going to vote, which I'm like, all right. I was like, listen, take a page from the far right, okay? I went to the Moms for Liberty conference in Philadelphia, okay? It wasn't a big flag-waving Trump rally. It wasn't a lot of rah-rah. It was very heads down, focused, saying, go back to your district. This is how you do it. This is what you do. Here's the game plan. Here's the playbook. You go back to your district. You take the smallest roles in government, your school board, your city council, just very small things, and you affect change locally through civics. This is like the civics, and this is being taught to like awful people that just believe, the Moms for Liberty, famous for not believing in empathy, thinking that empathy is woke. I have a video about this, and everyone's like, oh, you just did this thing. I have like the leadership like echoed what was in the video about, how schools are teaching empathy, and that's just a backdoor to Marxism. But these people are like going in school boards. They're like, they're getting involved locally, and I don't, what I mean, like this. They don't care. Like they don't care that Trump. They know that Trump is corrupt. I mean, these people aren't like, cognitively that reaches them that they know that he's probably paid for enough abortions to be an abortion factory. I mean, they don't care. They're just like, all right, bigger picture here.
Well, like it's they'd be okay with him being dictator for a day type of thing when he said that, and it's like they're always going on about how, more freedom, and how Biden wants to be a dictator and freedom's the most important thing. And then it's like, well, Trump said he wanted to be a dictator. And they're like, yeah, well, I trust him to do that. I think that that's what we need right now.
It is funny to me how much credit they give I wish I had that much faith in the Democratic Party as they do. Like the amount of things they attribute to the Democrats, I'm just like, wow, like you, and I'm like, you think the Democrats have a plan? I'm like,
Right.
I'm like, just stop. Like, just we're gonna back that up. They have a plan. Wait, the plan is, oh my god, like, and it's like this unified, cohesive plan.
Well, it's their thing with all conspiracies, though, is they never go for conspiracies that make sense because they're, like, confined and targeted. It's always their conspiracies include like half of the global population, all in on this, working towards this like evil goal that doesn't really have a decent motive, that doesn't really make sense, but everybody's in on it. Everybody's getting that George Soros check to, make global warming conspiracies happen, so we could make moon
Oh yeah,
landing.
no. One of the weirdest ones was I went to, I go to these school boards, I give speeches, I'll troll these Moms for Liberty lunatics, and I get invited by the parents. Like I don't know about these school boards
Right.
independently. A parent has come to me and said, or students have said, like, things are so bad, I want this comedian from TikTok to insult them. Which is like, how bad have things gotten as a parent that this is your life? So, so I go to this one, and it was fine, and the school board was functioning very well. I was sort of texting the parent. I was like, what's this? Sounds totally normal. And she's like, "Just wait." And then these moms for these MAGA chuds get up and start talking to these parents, and they're talking. It's not aligned with reality. They're like, all right, you guys are teaching gender ideology, and you're being paid to do this. This one guy's like, all right, well, you're being paid to do this. I'd like you to all to disclose how much you're being paid to teach gender ideology to our students and sneak that into the curriculum. And it was like their board was like, "What are you talking about? We're not doing that. We're not getting paid." And the guy's like, "Oh, okay." And I didn't have that recorded, and I was just like, "Damn it! Why am I not recording this part?" And they were all like, you could download their syllabus, the curriculum. My friend and I looked it up, and we're like, "There's nothing that says anything about gender ideology except maybe in their health class they were going to define gender for like a day. It would be like a blip on the radar, right? And that was enough for them to go, there it is, define sexuality and gender for like a day. It was just like, I mean, it was like the most inconsequential thing they could go over, and so it was, and they were just enraged that like this is making its way into the school, and it totally was not. It was manufactured. It's
Well, it's like the
imaginary,
cat litter
and it
thing.
was it was weird. It was like weird to witness firsthand because there was no evidence of this at all. There was nothing but just rumor, conjecture, and that is like kind of
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's like that kids are identifying as cats now. They've got cat boxes in the classrooms and things. It's the same thing. Like, and I've heard that
That
so
is the
many
most
times.
pervasive rumor. I remember we talked with this one guy. Remember, like, who was in my DMs, and we just spoke to him, and he was talking about that. It was like, and we were trying to be like having nice conversation, but just not. We were like, we're not scoring
Yeah.
points here. We're just basically being like, all right, this is, and we're like, and he, same thing of like, oh, someone showed me that, the secret footage of the kitty litter boxes in my local public school, and and we're like, no one has said anything about this. Like all the teachers and the students are all somehow keeping this a big secret that there's a kitty litter box and everyone's identifying as cats and dogs. We're like, dude, come on. And he's just stuck to it. And I was like, there's nothing, like you can't, I mean, it's what's his name? The guy who worked for DeSantis, who's trying to like defund public education.
Ugh.
What's his name? The guy who started the critical race theory nonsense.
Oh, uh, I
He has this famous speech from Hillsdale College.
I'll look it up here
Hillsdale
quick.
College.
Chris
I,
Rufo.
I probably.
Christopher Rufo. Christopher
Mm-hmm.
Rufo. I mean, like that guy, I mean, hats off to him. He's the one who started the CRT panic, and he did it so that we can, institute school choice.
Yep.
Just absolute. I mean, he took critical race theory. Let's be honest. It's a boring course. It's a legal course. It's law school level. If you actually read what people have written about, actual like CRT lessons, it is probably. I dare you not to fall asleep. All right. I mean, it's about how race intersects with the law and institutions. It's absolute. It's very technical. It's a lot to it, and it's so boring. And the thought to have them make it like
They're teaching
sexy
this
and
to
satanic.
kindergartners.
Yeah, like to make it sexy and satanic is just like a feat. It's like a feat unto
And the
itself.
funny thing, you mentioning this, it really is. I mean, and we know the right is all about projection. If they're ever accusing you of doing something, they're like actively doing it in that moment. But this is where it comes to like these are the conspiracies that they're accusing everybody else of doing. It's like they know that the people starting the whole CRT and the kitty litter boxes in schools and all that, they know that it's all bullshit. They know none of it's true, and they're doing it with a specific agenda. In this case, school choice, or it's the same thing with the border crisis and like all of those kinds of things. They know what they're doing, and they are organizing these conspiracies to achieve a nefarious goal. It is, and then they're like, and that's what the left is doing, and like their specific conspiracy is that the right or the left has the conspiracies that they are actually actively doing, and that's part of the conspiracy, and it's inception in the worst possible way. It hurts.
Yeah, no, that I've seen. So like I've been going to rallies, interviewing people for years, and I've seen this. It's I've seen a lot of things that were very fringe beliefs sort of have mainstream acceptance, and that was one of the things that when I was at Capitol Hill on January 6th, that was a big like eye opener for me because I thought, you're here, you don't like that Biden was elected. I get it, right? If it was the other way around, I'd be upset too, and I would look for any excuse to make sure that the election could be reversed, an excuse not to, of like to disqualify under proper
Right.
terms. But I I wasn't prepared for the fact that they actually believed it.
Yeah.
Like I thought, because I thought sometimes maybe it's advantageous, some belief that's spreading around. You're sort of like, all right, I don't really believe it, but it's advantageous right now to sort of promote this and right, like, oh, okay, I know the election wasn't stolen, but hey, let's just they think it is, so we'll. But I didn't like I wasn't expecting the fact that they all fully believed that it was stolen, and they were like I didn't. Then they were like on fire about it. I was, I was like I didn't expect that they, like
They fully
when you and I
bought
hear the
into
word
it. That
Soros,
yeah.
yeah, like so I have this one anecdote, and it's like I think about this a lot when I think about January 6th. So, I had famously went and been on the steps of Capitol Hill during all this stuff. Now, before I was about to leave, I wasn't supposed to be there. I was done with my interviews. I was like, all right, let's do this. And I was like, you know what? I had always wanted to go into like a rally and with like a CNN mic and just embody all of the conspiracies that they have, right? Like so I take out a CNN mic, and I was going to walk up to the people. I thought people had left, because people stormed out once Trump was done speaking, and I was like, oh, they left, and I was like, no, they went to the Capitol, duh. So I was just going to go, well, let me just go and interview people as CNN, and as I put the mic together with the CNN logo on it, and these MAGA guys walk up, they're walking by. I mean, they're very non-intimidating dudes, older, like just not, unremarkable. 3 of them, and they make some comments, like they're like, oh, fake news, CNN, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, what? I can't hear you under all this Soros money, right? Right? Now the 3 of them transformed. They grew fangs, they grew wings. They turned into 3 very scary individuals quickly. I went from being like, I'm not scared of the 3 of you, to like them being so incensed that I was like, all right. I was like, all right, like it was like there was like a bloodlust. And I was like, all right, okay, let me take this CNN mic off. I don't think it's a good idea. I took the mic off. I walked around the corner to Capitol Hill. And I think about this all the time. I could have just if those 3 guys hadn't like started a fight with me, I would have walked around the corner to the Capitol Hill riots, holding a CNN mic, ready to talk shit. And I think there's just so much in my mind of like how dead I would have been.
Well, it was funny. One of the questions I had actually written down for you is, have you ever felt unsafe? I've seen some of the abortion protest videos that you've gotten into where you're going around like, I hate women and stuff like that, and some people get kind of confrontational with you. And so I gotta imagine it gets a little dicey on occasion.
Yeah, sometimes it's gotten dicey and it's, and I have this sort of brand of, I want to learn. I don't want any videos of me being violent. So, because I know that could be weaponized against me, and that could be shared, and, of like, all right, this guy goes to MAGA rallies to look for fights. And so it's like, all right, I don't even want any of that. I've had plenty of situations where they want me to throw the first punch. They want to do something to make it so that I'm the aggressor, and they need that to happen. So more than a few times, they will bump me. They will do something so that I will react. And all they need for me to do is put my hands up and react. So that happens quite a lot. Usually, like having a megaphone handy has been helpful sometimes when they're like, I can just talk into it and naturally they're going to step away. There's been a few times where people are just like, you can scream right into my face. And blast my eardrums. There's like 1 or 2 people that have been like, like levels of unhinged, like they're mentally ill, and they should not be. They need mental health care, and QAnon has radicalized them, and with the World Economic Forum, stuff like that. Those people, I'm like, all right, I need to get away from them.
Have you ever actually been assaulted or anything in one of these situations?
Let me see. So that priest in the We Hate Women video, that guy's a Catholic priest. He put his hands on me a few times, being like, you're not with our group. And I was like, I am with your group. I hate women. And he is a Catholic priest. And it was very weird when I posted the video. He puts his hands on me multiple times. And all the comments from these chuds read, well, look how patient that guy is being with this, protester. And I was like, how is he being patient? We're looking at the same video.
He's literally legally assaulting me.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, I could, make, like put through assault charges and, like make this a case. And this is video. of you just grabbing me. And I was like, but you know what? If I do that, then I don't get to harass him anymore. Then there's, restraining order and, I don't. So, but it was just very funny. Their own reaction was like, oh, like so peaceful and calm. Look at him.
Yeah,
Right.
it's definitely something. They view, if you were to do the same thing to him, they would have viewed you as being very confrontational and violent. It's
The
amazing how they
intolerant
can just view
left.
the exact same thing through two different lenses, depending on if they agree with the side perpetrating it.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing: they normally have the police on their
Yeah.
side. They boast of how peaceful they are, and every situation I've seen, they have the police on their side. So it's very easy to boast this when you have the state backing you up.
What was it? You who I forgive me if I'm thinking of a different creator that does something similar. Did you go to one of the Supreme Court justices' houses and deal with the cops, like saying you were?
Oh yeah, oh my God, that was Jolly Good Ginger
Mm,
and myself and Justly Deserved and that was and Max Logic Max. Yeah, we went to Clarence Thomas's house and it's a private road, like you cannot even be on it. And the cops were called, and we were like, and then Jolly Good Ginger, who looks just like backwater
uh-huh.
MAGA on his own, plus he has he's a veteran, has his veteran hat, and he just held up the Bible. He's like, we're just from the River Falls Church. We're here to say a prayer for the justice, and the cop just left. He's like, oh, cool, and I was like, did that just work? He didn't even say like, all right, you guys actually can't be here. He just left, and I was like, oh my God, it's that easy.
It's insane.
That is crazy. One of the questions here, and this is kind of what I was thinking coming into this, is obviously you have a bit of an acting career a little while back, and then you've been doing the kind of this political social media stuff for a while, and then with your recent podcast, We Are Not Journalists, it feels like you are wanting to be a part of like this politics world, and you want to do it in a kind of funny way because that's humor is it's fun, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but these days there isn't anybody to take the role of a journalist out in the real world, it seems, to confront MAGA people or just discuss like politics in a way that isn't, CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News version. Like, how does it feel to kind of be thrust upon that role of like
Well,
being the
that
authority?
was like that was like the frustrating thing. So it's like a recurring theme with Max and I when we do the show, and because we'll go to these events and we listen to journalists come and talk to them and ask questions, and we're like, and we can just hear it. We're like, you know what? And these are journalists. They are good at they know how to do journalism. I don't want to take that away from them, but it is funny sometimes when they ask them questions, and I'm like, that's not the right question, right? Like we were at a Moms for Liberty event, and this journalist was talking to them, and they were telling journalists, we don't hate LGBTQ. The janitor that works at our local school, he's gay. We don't, we helped him, get this and that, and we love him and stuff. And I was like, oh, and then the journalist took that at face value, and I was like, great. Would you allow him to teach your kids, and
Mm-hmm.
be open about his identity and who he's married to? They're like, absolutely not. I was like, okay, great. It, I mean,
Right.
and
And
that
one
question
follow
was
up
right
question.
there. I
Right.
knew that. I knew the answer to that question. Just any of those, you could take any of those things by
Mm-hmm.
itself. It's like, yeah, we're fine with LGBTQ as long as they're in the closet.
As long as they're in their
And
Right.
this
case, they've
is,
got their own water fountain.
yeah, exactly.
That's
Just
that's
as long
honestly
as
what
they're not around,
it's
yeah,
honestly
as
what
long
it
as they're
kind
not
of
around
feels
when they're kids.
like. Is that like,
Yeah.
oh, like this nanny that I've had, like the Help movie is like, oh, like they're really great, but I wouldn't want them to teach their values to my kid, but they're just going to take care of
Yeah.
their kid for you, like
Mhm.
how does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Exactly. So, and that was like sort of a frustrating thing when you hear like journalists come up and talk to them, and I'm like, you're not. I was like, I know the answer to this question. I was like, I was like, you're letting them off the hook, and that was part of the reason why I would dress up as MAGA and talk to them, because I feel like they will, sort of dial it back maybe when they're talking to someone that is,
Right,
media or whatever, and sometimes. And I was like, no, I want you in your true, honest self.
right, mask
I'm going to
off.
talk about yeah, mask off. How do you honestly feel about gays, blacks, and
And
all of
and
that?
that's where good journalism comes in, is being able to ask the questions to get them to take that mask off without them realizing kind of what they're saying, because obviously they go in and they want to present a certain image, but something you are really good at doing is asking them those questions that make them feel like they're not betraying that image, while they very blatantly are betraying that image. And I think you're absolutely right. A lot of journalism has lost that ability to take those steps and ask those questions.
Yeah, and there's other people that and do this straightforward, like Luke Beasley on YouTube. He's more like very straightforward. He goes there identifying as a
Mm-hmm.
liberal, as very regular liberal, and I don't get the far left vibes from
No.
him, and he will have very straightforward conversations with them, and I think it works for him in the sense that like they're so activated by his presence, and that he's so confident, and they're just like angry, they're just furious,
Right.
and
Kind of like a
they'll
change my
definitely like
mind.
Yeah.
yeah, and they'll go and they'll just be more like mask off just because. I mean, what you need them to do is go off
Mm-hmm.
script.
Um. So curious,
I
how did
mean,
you?
and they are scripted so darn well.
Yeah, they are very well scripted.
Hmm.
I'm curious, how did you actually like get into being one of the best internet troll, or real life internet trolls, so to speak? Like how did you go from wherever you came from to this point? How did you?
I really saw that it was when you talk to MAGA, I saw like, all right, this is like no one is talking to them, no one is, and it was like when I would make content in front of Trump Tower. Like the irony is that I blew up making content in front of Trump Tower, protesting the TikTok
Mm-hmm.
ban. I had this video where I was, telling Trump not to shut down TikTok in front of Trump Tower, and that video, you know, blasted me, and gave me a whole bunch of followers and notoriety. And of course, the irony is years later, it's Biden as
Mm-hmm.
well, because it's a very it's politically inconvenient as an app for both
Mm-hmm.
parties. So
Right.
I I started doing that, and then I would talk to MAGA while I was there, and I was like, all right, I was dressed as MAGA doing some dance thing in front of Trump Tower, and this woman came up and started talking to me and was like very trusting and kind of outed herself as MAGA, and I was like, and she didn't hear a goddamn thing that I said. I filmed a video where I was being very inflammatory towards Trump. She did not listen to any of that. She just saw that I was dressed MAGA and was like, "Okay, cool. I can trust him."
It's
And I was like, "What?" I was like, "There's something to this." She didn't hear a word I said, and I thought, "All right, I need to explore this because they're going to go by the
mm-hmm.
aesthetic, and they're not going to listen." And I was like, "What's the boundaries of this listening, of them listening, of like," and I definitely like tested those boundaries of how what I could say for them to actually raise their eyebrows and go, that sounds off.
So
You
just
know,
Yeah.
looking for a line in the sand.
yeah. Sometimes their cognitive power kicks in, and I'm like, okay, you are like, like you are smart enough to to understand how
There is a
things
somewhat
work.
functioning brain buried in there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, and so it just is very yeah. There's that, and so I that was like, let me go to a MAGA rally, let me talk to people, let me interview people and stuff, and then I interviewed a few people before the election, and then I thought, oh well, I gotta. That was nice. Well, I guess I'm not going to be interviewing people at MAGA rallies after the election because why would there be MAGA rallies? Am I right? And of course, I've been to more after this stupid election than I was before. I was like, so that was, yeah, I was like, how is this? This is so surreal.
That is a good point. Do you?
And going on,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Taylor.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask. Do you think that these rallies? Do you think that this is gonna continue or get worse? Like after. Well, Taylor wanted to ask you too about the election, so we'll get into that in a second. Or
Well, yeah, no, I think the rallies, I mean, sometimes the rallies are, organic and based around a single issue, and you get people pretty hot-headed about that, especially with regards to gender ideology and immigrants and stuff like that. The rallies themselves, the rest of them, I mean, if Trump were to be gone, then no one can get the audience that he's getting. No one can command that audience. And I've seen people try and fail with regards to that at the Miami court hearing where he was being indicted for the secret documents. You had a bunch of MAGA leadership try to go there and grandstand and give speeches, and they couldn't get hold of a crowd because the crowd was milling about, and they were going, kept being like, "Oh well, is Trump here yet? Is Trump here yet?"
so you think that this
So
is kind of
I
the
wonder
peak
if someone could command
of
that audience.
insanity then, and it'll subside after he loses, dies,
I
or
mean,
goes to prison?
they'll glom onto
You
someone
think they will?
else, but right now he is like he's bigger than the Republican Party because he's like
Right.
the ultimate outsider.
Yeah, when Ron DeSantis was basically just so similarly, released from his duties to run, and just like kind of kicked to the curb, sent back to the doghouse, if you will. I thought to myself, maybe if Trump loses and or I don't know, dies, whatever, just falls out of popular view. Does MAGA just sort of fall? I thought that Ron DeSantis was going to be pick up the torch and run with it, but it doesn't seem like they're willing to latch on to anybody else. And maybe that is just until he leaves, or I was hoping that maybe it is Trump, and without Trump, there is no MAGA or Republican Party potentially.
I wonder about that because I mean, none of them had a problem with DeSantis until he ran against Trump, and then their wrath against him, and they would say when I would interview Florida MAGA about why they didn't like DeSantis, their reasons were very valid. They said, all right, when he ran to govern our state, he knew that he was not going to be around to govern and that he would be on the campaign trail. And he knew this while he was campaigning, and that's a betrayal. And that is a very valid point. They talked about the insurance crisis, the flooding, very real issues that Floridians face, and so they could see the light in terms of, oh, these issues need to get taken care of. And but before that, Ron DeSantis was able to pull the wool over their eyes, and with all this culture war nonsense,
Yeah, the Disney
and it was
fights.
just, yeah, and it was bizarre how they just didn't sort of wake up to this fact. And I mean, I had a bunch of people that just were, I mean, it's sort of unilateral. There's a lot of them that, and if you go to a MAGA rally, talk about DeSantis, they will sound off, especially the ones in Florida. I mean, and this was, by the way, yeah, this was in Florida, his home state, and they were like, and they had a lot of they were talking about, oh, well, like he brought the World Health Organization to Florida, and we hate him for this. He's World Economic Forum. He's, that's where his money's coming from, and all this stuff. So yeah, bizarre stuff. He doesn't, like they like Trump because he's an outsider. Like they will. You need someone with that mythical outsider image. I mean, and you can argue that he is an outsider because he's like,
Oh yeah.
he's not beholden to the Republican Party.
No,
And I
definitely.
think
Definitely not
they want
beholden.
they want someone that is an outsider, that is not part of the establishment.
It's a pretty tall order these days in politics. There's not too many outsiders that can make it in any presidential cycle, even to close to a primary or a general, much less win.
I mean, none of
I
us
don't know.
thought that he would be able to do it. It's quite the phenomenon. I ate a lot of crow in 2016. After he won his way into the White House.
Of course. My girlfriend's here.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, hi. Hi. Doggies.
All the dogs.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, doggies. Hi.
So yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, it's great talking to
Yeah.
all of you. I think it's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you, so much for coming on and doing this. Just one last thought before you go. Do you think that Trump has the ability to win an election again?
I mean, it's sort of like 50-50.
Yeah.
It's like if it were today, I wouldn't want the election to be today.
No, me neither. Yeah, we've gotten a
I
lot of people who seem overly confident again, and I'm still suffering the PTSD from 2016. So
Yeah, I definitely I definitely am like, all right, it's on Biden to not like let Trump win. Like this, if he loses, it's his
absolutely,
fault.
like it was Hillary's in 2016. I mean, it's the same thing all over again. But
Yeah, like I think Hillary needs to not campaign for
yeah,
Biden.
no, she just
anytime
go
soon.
sit it out,
Like,
retire. Go eat some children in a pizza basement or something.
Yeah, exactly. Just do all of those things. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us this much of your time. We again really appreciate it. Everybody, definitely check out his podcast. We Are Not Journalists. Check him out on TikTok and YouTube. Walter Masterson. He does some really incredible work. And thank you so much again for being on. If there's anything else you
All
want
right.
to plug,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. But We Are Not Journalists. Download me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
cheers. If you're ever in Minnesota, hit
Awesome,
us
man.
up.
It's been a great time.
Oh, we're in Minnesota.
He's in the cities. I'm an hour north of the cities. Twin Cities.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Are you ever up this
Okay.
way?
Yeah.
I might be. My girlfriend wants to visit her sister there, and she's like, all right, find a MAGA rally or something. She's like, an excuse to go there.
Well, please,
But usually they're like in the neighboring state.
please let us know if you do. I would love to join you in one of those if you'd have me. Obviously, I've
Yeah,
got
absolutely.
a little bit of blue collar look going on. I think I could fit in there with you. So.
Oh, you didn't fit in perfectly. You don't have to change anything. Yeah.
Well, that would be awesome.
No.
We'd love to do that. We won't keep tying you up here. We have a thing called a Minnesota goodbye, which takes another hour after you say goodbye. So we'll do our best to not subject you to that. But thank you again. We Are Not Journalists. Check them out there. And thank you, everybody, for tuning
awesome.
in. We will see you next week.
All right. Awesome, man. Taylor, Wagon.
Yep.
Cheers,
Cheers.
man.
Yep. Thanks, Walter.